Weaver wanted to die.
The story of Ruby Ridge, an 11-day siege on a remote hilltop near Bonners Ferry.
The media was portraying our family completely opposite of how I saw our family.
Michael Johnson was a U.S. Marshal at the time, the law enforcement agency responsible for bringing Randy Weaver in. U.S. Marshal agents made a series of attempts to have Weaver surrender, but Weaver refused to leave his cabin. That's when things escalated, with more federal agents and hundreds of Weaver supporters converging on Ruby Ridge. Shots were fired, and it didn't take long to see what had just happened.
Shot the dog, they shot the dog.
Really, within 15 minutes, Vicki Weaver would be dead, and Kevin Harris would be shot, and the entire thing, which should have been easily settled, would just simply blow up.
At 16, it was very hard. We weren't just a crazy family up in the hills. We weren't the monsters that everyone thought that we were.
I just wanted to kick the door down so I could take a couple with me.
Hello and welcome to Wicked Murderer Podcast. We are back once again with a very, very interesting, very heartbreaking, very polarising case. And I'm joined once again by, he's still there, I believe. Can you hear me, Ben Carter?
Knock, knock. Yep, hear you loud and clear. Thank you so much for having me. Back with another episode. The series is nearly done. I can see the finishing line, and sprinting alongside me, producer Dan, how are you?
Very good. Feeling very calm after a nice little trip away. I know to the viewers and the listeners it won't seem that way because we've been, we got ahead of the game, didn't we? Kind of.
In a way.
But spent a couple of weeks in the States, visited Boston, visited Nashville, visited Maine, and I just feel great. Well, a bit depressed because back to reality now, but I feel great. How was your hollybobs, Ben? I know you love that word, Tom.
Little mini hollybobs. But yeah, not so bad. Just went to the south coast of England in a little place called Rye. And I love a beach.
Rye's lovely.
Good or bad, I love a beach. Yeah, Rye was nice. I feel refreshed. I did also do a little cheeky, our holidays brought the filming of content forward. I did feel Rye-freshed as well, thank you so much. And this arrived in the post when I got back, so that was good. Arrived, yeah. A miracle in the Andes. So just in time for last week's episode.
Beautiful.
Tom, how have you been, sir?
Yeah, I haven't been away. I am going away, though. I'm going away at the end of this week and still, keeping it so we've got an intense filming schedule, because I think you guys have been away, come back, relax. No, guys. We've got to pack a lot of filming in before I go away. So, work's been very busy, but all good. I cannot complain. There's been some lovely blue skies recently over here, so I don't feel like I've missed out. But it's lovely to have my main man and the Rye guy back again.
That's good stuff. That's just good stuff. Hello, YouTube world. I am so sorry to be interrupting the episode. I know it's annoying, but at least I've hopefully got a nice bit of backing audio with me right now. Go on, Dan. I just wanted to pass on a very quick message to you watching on YouTube. If you're currently not subscribed to the channel, we would appreciate it so much if you click that little button right there. We're well on the way now to 100,000 subscribers. We've been trying to crack the egg that is YouTube for many years. Difficult to do with true crime and the word murder in your channel name, but we're trying nonetheless. If we do reach 100,000 subscribers, we commit, we pledge to you that we will do at least one live show in the UK somewhere within the next 6 months of hitting 100,000 subscribers. Likely it might be London, but we might also add 1 or 2 other shows. But that will only happen, of course, if we do reach the 100,000 subscriber mark. We're desperate for that little play button, that little silver plaque to give to our editor. That's my motivation for it. But either way, we would love it so much if you would just click that little button down below, subscribe to the channel. We got loads more content coming your way. You don't want to miss it. And I know it's Tom and Dan that usually engage with the YouTube comments and things like that, but I just wanted to send all of my love your way. And with all that being said, let's get back to the episode.
Should we just get into it then, lads?
Let's do it indeed.
So Ben, what is today's case?
So this week we are here to discuss the 1992 Ruby Ridge Standoff, also referred to as the case of Randall C. Weaver. 11 days in the mountains, the siege of Ruby Ridge. The tragic truth of Ruby Ridge. Randy Weaver versus the US government. And if you are watching chronologically and you've come here from last week's episode, today's case has had lots of them red. We were in the mountains last week and we're back in the mountains again, but lots of ridges. Red, Ruby. Ruby Ridge. Simple one.
That's simple.
Yeah, well, relatively entry level.
I don't know if entry level either, but this season I have to say people have been getting the cryptic clues.
Yes.
But yes, it is a very interesting case. I mean, straight off the bat, Ruby Ridge sounds like a place that would be in a film where it's like, don't be going to Ruby Ridge. You don't like what happens at Ruby Ridge. And I don't like what happened at Ruby Ridge anyway, so maybe it does tie in perfectly. But Dan, can you set the scene, please?
I bloody can. A remote mountain location, North Idaho, August of 1992. We're going to begin this week's episode with the words of the man at the heart of the Ruby Ridge standoff, Randall Claude Weaver. 44-year-old Randy had cut himself off from the outside world, living with his wife, 4 young children, and a close friend in the wild mountains and dense forests of northern Idaho. Their secluded cabin at Ruby Ridge quickly became the focus of a tense and infamous standoff. As federal agents encircled the area and the pressure for him to give up drastically increased, the wilderness that had once offered freedom and peace transformed into a suffocating prison, with each passing hour heightening the risk of death and uncertainty for his family. On the morning of August 21st, 1992, federal marshals shot my son, Samuel, in the back and killed him. He was running home to me. His last words were, "I'm coming, Dad." They shot his little arm almost off, and they killed him by shooting him in the back with a 9mm submachine gun. The gun had a silencer on it. He was not wanted for any crime. He did not commit any crime. The marshals killed his dog right at his feet. He only tried to defend both himself and his dog. Sammy was just 14 years old. He did not yet weigh 80 pounds. He was not yet 5 feet tall. The marshals who killed Sammy were grown men. They were in combat gear. They had their faces painted with camouflage. They were wearing full camouflage suits with black ninja-type hoods. They were carrying machine guns and large caliber semi-automatic pistols. They were trained to kill. The next day, completely without warning of any kind, an FBI sniper shot and killed my wife, Vicki. He was using a .308 caliber sniper rifle with a specially weighted barrel and a 10 power scope. He was using match-grade ammunition. He had years of training to kill. I heard him testify at the trial that he wanted to kill. He shot my wife in the head and killed her. She was not wanted for any crime. There were no warrants for her arrest. At the time she was gunned down, she was helpless. She was standing in the doorway of her home. She was holding Elishaba, our 10-month-old baby girl, in her arms. As the bullet crashed through her head, she slumped to her knees, holding Elishaba tightly so that she would not drop her. We took the baby from her as she lay dead and bleeding on our kitchen floor. I am not without fault in this matter. I was convicted of failure to appear for trial on charges. I was found not guilty of the original weapons charge, and I was found not guilty of every other crime I was charged with. I faced my accusers at a trial. I faced the FBI, the Marshal's Service, the US Attorney, a federal judge, and a jury of my peers. I faced the death penalty. I have been accountable for my actions. I now face you, senators, to ask that those responsible for the killings of my wife and my son to be brought to account for their actions. I can think of no reason surrounding this matter that would have justified the rules of engagement followed at Ruby Ridge by the FBI. I have nothing else to say at this time.
When did federal authorities first decide that Randy Weaver posed enough of a threat to justify surveillance and armed action? How were the rules of engagement so different and significantly more aggressive than what was considered standard protocol? What exactly happened during the initial confrontation that led to 3 people dying in the mountains? And why did Ruby Ridge become such a focal rallying point for anti-government and militia movements across America?
So though we haven't covered them chronologically, this case concludes the trio of the early to mid-90s anti-government extremism incidents, as well as the radicalization of Timothy McVeigh. So if you'd like to watch or listen to our Oklahoma City bombing or Waco siege episodes, feel free to search them out. Or we have technically also covered the quad if you also include Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. So as Dan has read there, we've heard Randy's side of the story, and now we're going to look exactly how Ruby Ridge came to be, with a background, timeline, and aftermath.
So Randall Claude Weaver, who much preferred it if you referred to him as Randy or even Pete on occasion, was born on the 3rd of January 1948 in the city of Villisca, Iowa. Interestingly, when first naming the place, the city's founders used the Native American word Waliska, which they thought at the time meant pretty place. Unfortunately for them, it actually translated to Satan or an evil spirit. And you might have already heard of Villisca, as I said it. This name for them, Satan or an evil spirit, would actually become very apt for the scene of the 1912 Villisca Axe murders, in which 8 people, including 6 children, were brutally murdered with an axe in a Villisca house. The case remains unsolved more than 100 years later, with several suspects listed as potential perpetrators for this act. Not axe, but it works.
It does work, sadly, Ben.
I know. Worked a bit too. But on this list of potential perpetrators included a local reverend and many others that were surrounded in plausibility. The city has since adopted the frightening nickname of Villisca, living with a mystery. And apparently they've kind of embraced the nature of the unsolved axe murder in their city. It welcomes the reputation through local events and tours, giving visitors a chance to connect with the tale and the ongoing mystery that, in some people's opinion, now defines Villisca.
I think you'd make that your thing, would you?
They've kind of took it and run.
Yeah, I don't think that's great for tourism, or the kind of tourism that would encourage. Living with a mystery just sounds like...
I've just got living in America in my head when I'm, living with a mystery. Kind of. But I don't know if that's the track they use.
Anyway, I mean, I don't know if you guys ever made the link. I was with a friend yesterday in Ely, and I never made the link to eels with the name Ely.
I never have.
No, and there's a big old metal statue of an eel there.
Oh.
And they do an eel festival there every year.
Did not know that.
Is that just because they get a lot of eels in the river?
Well, I don't know, Dan. It would make sense, wouldn't it? It would make sense.
Make perfect sense,
Ely. Yeah, just never knew. So there you go, guys. That's a little fact for you.
Well, there you go.
Ely, living with a slippery.
That works as well.
Eel.
And with the song.
I mean, just leave the song now.
So, unsolved gruesome axe murders aside, Randy was one of 4 children born to farming couple Wilma and Clarence Weaver. He grew up in what was considered a fairly typical Midwestern setting and initially lived a fairly typical lifestyle. As youngsters, it was not uncommon for the 4 Weaver children to tend to the fields alongside their parents. Their routine was always to make time for school, prayer, and the family farm. Their parents were very religious and struggled to find a Christian church that specifically aligned with their combined beliefs. And this will kind of be a theme not only in his parents' life, but in his future first marriage's dynamic. Yeah, religion plays a big part in this case. So basically, they went between different evangelical, Presbyterian and Baptist churches, and they would often move around them, trying to get the best moments from each one, I suppose. Just as they started to immerse themselves in one particular church community, they quickly joined another. What
do you mean by that, Ben? By the best bits, the moments? What?
Well, it could have been a particular sermon that was on that day, and then they knew that the following Sunday was, I don't know. I'm not really a religious guy. I wanted to say the Sabbath, but I think that's rest, isn't it? Is that rest?
Yeah,
not even Christian either.
7. It's Sunday, isn't it? Day of Sabbath.
Oh, yeah. Out of my depth with the eels that have been netted. But yeah, this family, very religious, and they couldn't find a church that exactly aligned with what they were looking for. Here it is suggested that Randy, either via the church or via his highly religious parents, learned about biblical prophecy and had a particular fascination with the prediction and possibility of the end times.
Hey, we're not far off anymore, are we?
It's feeling very much like that. It's feeling very much like that.
Well, hopefully not.
Hopefully not, yeah.
Yeah, definitely hopefully not, yeah.
Like and subscribe.
Just to be even with that. No, I've got ages left. So, hopefully someone hears that and gets G'd up. The Weaver family lived modestly, and by most accounts, Randy's childhood was unremarkable in terms of any major trauma, social issues, or struggles. He was described as a bright and athletic young man. He ran track and played football at his local Jefferson High School, and he was generally well liked by peers. As we mentioned, religion played a role in his upbringing, and this would be something that developed further as he grew into a young man. He was raised in a devoutly Christian household, which would drastically shape his later worldviews, and so too would politics. His family held strong conservative values and would regularly encourage their children to take up any interest in local affairs. From a very early age, Randy developed a keen sense of patriotism towards his country, so much so that after graduating from high school and attending a local community college for 2 years, he made the decision, at the height of the US-Vietnam War, to enlist in the US Army in 1968 at age 20. So reports differ here slightly. Some say that he trained as a Green Beret, others say that he trained as an Army engineer. And although he aspired to go to Vietnam, he remained stateside as an instructor, primarily at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and never saw combat. Following his honourable discharge from the Army at the rank of sergeant in October of 1971, Randy returned to his home state of Iowa, where over the next several years he held a number of different blue-collar jobs, including ones in sales, ones in marketing, ones in manufacturing, and one at a local John Deere factory. Well, Dan was just saying they make tractors and other gardening tools, eh, Dan?
Yeah, love it. Big fan.
Are they cheap or
No.
is it Deere?
They seem like a leading brand, aren't they?
That's good.
I only know it from Bowling for Soup. With a John Deere logo and a stain on the back from when you laid me out flat.
Landscaping. Trees.
Yeah, they make tractors, don't
Tractors. Lawnmowers. All the good stuff.
Like many others during that particular time, he felt increasingly disillusioned by the Vietnam War and the overall political climate in America, which contributed to his increasing distrust of government authority. A few months after returning home, Randy married a woman by the name of Victoria, also known as Vicki Jordison, with whom he shared the interesting combination of extremely strong religious and apocalyptic beliefs. The pair had met a year prior whilst Randy was on leave, and he actually introduced himself to her as Pete rather than Randall, because he was said to have despised his given name. I mean, that's a very big sidestep, Randall to Pete.
He kind of looks like a Pete, but he looks like a Randy as well.
There you go. The pair got married at the First Congregationalist Church in Fort Dodge, Iowa. Though he and his new wife shared a strong interest in Christianity, their interpretation leaned heavily towards apocalyptic and survivalist beliefs. Vicki quickly became a driving force behind the couple's separatist philosophy and was totally convinced that the world was descending into chaos. They believed wholeheartedly that society was collapsing morally and politically, and they saw the federal government as both corrupt and threatening to their freedom. They now perceived their government as their new enemy.
Can I ask you boys a question which some people might perceive as quite deep by my standards? Yeah.
Hit me.
I might have outed myself as
It's not about your arsehole, is it?
No, not again. I'm not going to go there again.
It's deep.
We've covered quite a few cases where either religion or politics play like a really big part in family life dynamic in some cases. If you couldn't tell, I wasn't raised in a household that, and no shade at my parents if they ever happen to listen to this episode, but religion and politics very rarely discussed in my house. The first thing that came to mind when Tom put me on the spot about a good church subject was Sabbath. How prominent, because in a lot of the cases where religion and politics are really drilled in early doors, where do you boys kind of stand on that? Because for me, where you give them a bit more freedom and just do what you want as long as you're happy kind of vibe that my parents did, I then also suffer from that because I can't hold a conversation about politics or religion without panicking. Just put it out there how you boys feel about religion and politics.
I don't think, I mean, you're basing your experience and then it's quite a wider scope than that, isn't it? Like, I don't think, not everyone who grows up in a household where politics is discussed doesn't then go on to do their own research and look into it. I mean, I'm not very politically minded. I'm ignorant to a lot of things, but I think it's not a case of you're either in a family that talks about it and then, you know, you grow up interested in it. I think you either hold a strong interest or not. I mean, are you saying the link between people who go on to commit crimes and trouble through politics and religion, or are you saying just Is it good to raise your kids within a household that discusses these things? What is the question?
I don't think it was linking it to the crime as such, although there'll be other extremely strict religious families that obviously are in the majority and don't commit acts like what we're discussing, some of these cases that end quite badly. But I guess my question was more innocent than that, and was just like, I probably missed out on a bit of chat as a child about religion. And I went to Sunday school for a few weeks, but I don't remember it.
What chat do you think you missed out?
Just like, politics and how.
Are you just
the world
asking them
works
just generally what kind of upbringing of?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
that's fine.
I think so.
I think if people are interested, I grew up in a family that was almost zero on the religious side of things, but very political from old David Lambert, even from when I was very young. But I think your language of hammering is quite obvious. If it's hammered in from an early age on both sides, I don't think it can be very healthy for a developing brain, let's say. But religion can provide goodness and a good path and faith and something to look forward to. Politics is a different thing, I think.
Thanks so much, Dan and Tom. Just questions of the mind.
Yeah, sure. Not long after they were married, Vicki fell pregnant. Randy had briefly returned to college at the University of Northern Iowa, but with a newborn child on the way, he decided to go back to work instead. Vicki initially worked as a secretary, however, she became a homemaker not long after the arrival of their first child, a baby girl they named Sarah. Sarah was born at a time when the parents were becoming increasingly distrusting of their government, as well as more and more motivated to live an off-the-grid lifestyle. Sarah would recall the following on her early years.
When Mum and Dad met, Dad was in the army. He was a Green Beret. It wasn't until he was home on leave that they actually started to date. I have memories of hot Iowa summers and cold Iowa winters, and Grandma and Grandpa's farm. I do remember my parents discussing always wanting to move to the mountains. So they learned about how to raise kids without electricity and things like that. I then remember they started to sell things, and Mum and Dad prepared by buying things you might need whilst living on top of a mountain somewhere. Over the next few years, 2 more children would be welcomed to the Weaver family, baby Samuel and baby Rachel. During this time period, Randy became increasingly more engaged with survivalist literature and religious fringe materials. One book in particular that seemed to change Randy's life was Hal Lindsey's 1970 book, The Late Great Planet Earth. In the book, Lindsey explored the comparison between current world politics and biblical prophecy, arguing that, as a result of the current state of affairs, the world was rapidly heading into end times. In 1978, Vicki, who was self-appointed as the family's religious leader, started having recurring dreams about living on a mountaintop and thought the apocalypse was growing ever near. She and Randy began visiting the Amish to understand how to live without electricity. See, what I find interesting is actually, even though we're feeling very much end times is near with everything going on, it does seem a very recurring theme throughout history, that things boil over and get into these crazy states. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know, but yeah.
With everything that's going on, obviously, things getting, even the birth of the internet would have been a time when everyone's like, things are getting crazy. And the birth of AI feels like the new version of that in a way.
Yeah.
I think there's always people who are scared of the unknown and scared of the world developing in the quick way. Yeah, I think you can sit there and listen to the news reports. You can sit there, go down any echo chamber and basically spiral and, see there's no hope. But then you can also get lost in a more positive rabbit hole. I mean, it's not to be ignorant, and I think you have to look at both sides of things. But yeah, I can completely understand why people are worried about society as it is. 100%.
Scary times. But they don't have to be scary.
How can we fix it, Ben?
Well, just get distracted by something you love doing or love hearing or love watching, and just do that as much as you can until the scary stuff goes away.
Doom scroll until...
Just be ignorant.
Don't put your head in the sand. You got to speak up.
Put your head in that sand. Switch off. Just do it in a way that's kind to your alignment of the bones, and just chill. And don't learn about politics. Don't learn about religion, and you just bounce around life until you die.
Yeah, I think Ben's more like kind of a Baloo kind of character.
Yeah, Baloo's fine. Actually, I'll take that. Yeah. Everyone loves Baloo. But don't
it'd get a bit annoying after a while. You're like, can we actually get something done? Look under, there's some ants. All right, we get it. Now, can we build a place to live? Oh no, as the sun comes up, comes down. Yes, we get it. It's a jungle. Shelter. I think between us, we're probably, we could probably fix things.
So this book as well, which does look like I'd be completely out of my depth in trying to read it, but it basically at the time cited the increase in frequency of famines, wars, and earthquakes as major events that point to signs of the end of the world. And at that point, the Soviet invasion of Israel had just happened, which apparently is referred to as the War of Gog and Magog. And there's a Gog-Magog road down the road from us, which is...
It's a golf course.
There's a golf course as well, yeah. The Gog-Magog golf course. So yeah, the book maybe scared him a little as well.
As a result of these dreams, Randy and Vicki decided to start preparing for a self-sufficient, off-the-grid lifestyle, selling most of their possessions, putting their house on the market, stockpiling food, weapons and supplies. Sounds pretty good, actually. Apart from the weapons bit.
Yeah. I hear you.
Yeah.
Scotland.
Sure, let's go. For them, it wasn't just about survival. It was about living apart from what they now considered as a sinful and heavily decaying society. It was about raising their family in their own world, which they viewed as safer, more spiritually aligned and less corrupt. Whilst all of this was happening, Randy became linked to a number of different right-wing and extremist groups. While Randy never formally joined extremist groups, he did sometimes associate with far-right and white separatist circles during the 1980s, most notably attending a handful of meetings of the Aryan nations in northern Idaho. These connections would later be used by federal agents to build a case against him, though Randy himself would consistently deny ever being a committed member of such movements, and only attending their events 3 or 4 times. We will touch more on this shortly and in the aftermath.
3 or 4 times is still a lot for me.
He showed up.
A lot, isn't it?
He showed up.
He went back. He went back. And he might have gone back again.
Yep. Have you seen the footage of Charlie Kirk's funeral, by the way?
Oh, I saw all the fireworks and stuff.
Fucking hell, it's weird.
It looked like she was making like a wrestling entrance.
Yeah, and Trump dancing and then going off on a tangent talking about his policies and stuff. And oh my God, it's weird, man. Very cult feeling.
So by the early 1980s, Randy and Vicki had grown determined to leave mainstream society altogether. After selling their house and almost all of their possessions, in 1983, they moved west with their 3 children, eventually purchasing 20 acres of rugged land within a pine forest in Naples, Boundary County, Idaho, which is located very near to Ruby Ridge. And yeah, point worth making is that the name Ruby Ridge was already in place long before the Weavers arrived there. This land in particular was located approximately 30 miles south of the Canadian border, and it sat on the southernmost ridge of 4 different ridges. They purchased the land for $5,000 in cash, as well as trading in their moving truck upon completion. So in total, they paid around $15,000 in today's money. Upon this piece of land, they gradually built a small 2-story cabin made out of plywood and mill ends. And they did this without any electricity or running water. At the time that they moved to this remote location, they had 3 young children, Sarah, Samuel, and Rachel. And they would live here, because I always assumed that this was kind of they retreated to this location and then things happened straight away. But they would live here for 9 years without too many issues. They will touch on some of them, but yeah, they would live here for 9 years until the Ruby Ridge standoff. So by the latter point of which another baby girl would be born, and this would be Elishaba. During their time on the mountain, the Weaver children would have an extremely limited social life off the grid and would be homeschooled by their mother. Writer Daniel Levitas stated the following on Randy's decision-making process when moving his family to the mountains.
Randy Weaver wanted to move his family from Iowa to Idaho, partly because of the farm crisis. By the early 1980s, the economy in Iowa had been deteriorating for some time. Fuel and input costs were rising, and farmers were going bankrupt. Farmers were losing their family farms. Interest rates were 15 to 18%. Randy was working at the John Deere factory, afraid that he was going to get fired. The Weavers, who were exploring the idea of Bible prophecy, began to see things that were occurring as part of the end times. The very thing that the book of Revelations was promising. Those connections were ones that Vicki especially was making.
It's quite a large quite a large plot of land. There were numerous pieces of signage that would gradually be added over the years, and the most prominent one that's quite infamous now is 2 pieces of wood bolted to a tree which says, "Every knee shall bow to Joshua Messiah," or Yeshua Messiah. Let me find out about Yeshua for you guys.
Please do.
Yeshua. Oh.
So Yeshua Messiah is a transliteration of the Hebrew name Yeshua combined with Mashiach. Yeshua means YHWH saves or salvation, whilst Messiah or Mashiach means anointed one.
This is Messiah, isn't it?
No, it's spelt weird. It's spelled Mashiach. Mashiach? Mashak?
I do a voice on that, mate.
No voice. But basically it translates to God saves the anointed one. A little bit of signage for you. God saves the anointed one. So they're taking this biblical prophecy, the end times are coming, everything that's happening in the world is very much, right, we're going to the mountains. Well, you can see the appeal, going and just doing your own thing. I definitely can see that appeal right now with the way that the world is. But I think also there was an element of literally the apocalypse is coming, the world is going to end. We saw it in our Anthill Kids episode, didn't we? And that was very much a motivation to get everyone onto the mountain. But just to get away from mainstream society feels quite appealing. I see the appeal.
I think that's how a lot of the cults are born, aren't they? How people, no one else in the world is living right. They can make their own society and live better. I think that's how a lot of things are born in that essence. Yeah, I get the idea of, wanting to be away and have your own space and have peace and quiet. But I don't think I'd want to be there too long personally, but you guys crack on.
Running water would be an issue and no electricity. Don't be completely off the grid, but slightly leaning off it,
No 4G, so you can't do your doom scrolling.
Yeah, you need that. What's old Muskie's satellite
you do
thing?
Starlink, do a bit of solar panels. That's all right. That's still off the grid.
Yeah.
But is it on the grid having the phone and having a paper trail to you?
Depends how you define it, really. But I'd see having a bit of solar panel.
I'd say off the grid's off the grid, Dan.
The grid is literally electricity being on the grid, but being solar is a
paper trail, no?
Well,
paper trail to your phones and usage and all that stuff.
Yeah, probably.
Don't want to be completely off the grid, but I'd like to be away from it.
Yeah.
So they've got this land, they've built this cabin, it's taken them time, but 9 years until the siege happened. There will be things that will point out were issues during this time, but generally speaking, life was good. They had their family, they were away from what they viewed as a very falling apart society and government. And for Vicki especially, their new home in Ruby Ridge symbolized the prophesied safe haven, where she believed that she and her family could wait out the apocalypse that loomed ever closer for the rest of society. For Randy, it was slightly different. It was a way for him to live free from the interference of the government he increasingly distrusted and resented. Up in the mountains, the Weaver family were incredibly private, keeping completely to themselves despite having a few neighbours scattered around different parts of the woodland in the Naples area. They started growing their own vegetables and hunting for their meat. They adhered to strict lifestyle guidelines based on the scripture readings that they would study, such as avoiding pork and making Vicki sleep in a shed during her menstruation. In their new location, winter temperatures could drop as low as minus 10 degrees Celsius, which is 14 degrees Fahrenheit, and in the summer, temperatures could reach 35 degrees Celsius, which is 95 degrees Fahrenheit. So yeah, unkind winters, very hot summers, and you're up in the mountains. No aircon, sadly, no heating, sadly electrical anyway, or gas. On their new life in the mountains, Randy's eldest daughter, Sarah, would recall the following.
We didn't have a TV. We dug deep into the Bible. My mother took it all very literally. Fear was a big part of it. She believed in an apocalyptic future. We were taught from a very early age to never point a gun at anything you don't plan on shooting. Dad was very, very strict about that. Guns were tools in our family. They were there for protection from wild animals or to hunt game. Guns were there for a purpose.
Yeah, it's kind of been a trend for this series. One of the first things I do when I sit down to research and write these episodes is Google Street Views. Really build a vivid picture of the case. And the nearest place I could get to in Ruby Ridge was over by a location which is known as Roman Nose Lakes Trailhead, where you can kind of see mountains on the horizon in the distance, which is where the Ruby Ridge cabin was. Looks beautiful.
Oh, God.
Looks beautiful.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Take me there now.
We're working on it. We are working on it.
There's a person there.
Is there?
Yeah,
Where?
if you zoom in, little guy on the old log floating in the water.
The red guy, yeah.
Oh.
The ruby red top.
Scary.
It's all making sense.
It's all going ahead.
So yeah, as we always do, all the links and reference points for this week's episode will go in our Facebook group, which is I Could Murder a Podcast, True Crime Listeners and Discussion Group. Come and join. Let us in. Let yourself in.
It's a really thriving community, and everyone's so lovely there. Lots of interesting links get sent in there every day. It is genuinely very lovely. For the Weavers, these years were some of the happiest of their lives. Though conditions were at times extremely challenging, they made the best of the situation and did everything they could to raise their children well and provide them with protection as well as education. However, over the following 9 years, a series of different social involvements and disputes rekindled the broken-off relationship between the Weavers and the American government. In 1984, Randy and his neighbour Terry Kinnison had a conflict regarding a $3,000 land transaction. Kinnison lost the following lawsuit and was required to pay Randy an extra $2,100 in court fees and damages. Enraged by this, Kinnison sent multiple letters to the FBI, which is, taking it badly.
Yeah. From what I understand as well, these guys were neighbours and it was a very small bit of barren land that the argument was about. But again, without this neighbour's reaction, as I've interpreted this case, the Ruby Ridge standoff probably wouldn't have happened. So this part is mad what happens next.
So he sent multiple letters to the FBI, the Secret Service and the county sheriff, claiming that Randy had threatened to kill Pope John Paul II, President Ronald Reagan and the Idaho Governor John V. Evans. Randy claimed that numerous forged and threatening letters were sent to President Reagan pretending to have come from him. Without the land dispute and without these letters, as Ben mentioned, it is likely that the Ruby Ridge standoff would never have taken place. A few months later, in January of 1985, the FBI and the Secret Service began investigating claims that Randy had threatened to kill President Reagan and the government and law enforcement officials. A couple of weeks later, on the 12th of February, Randy and his wife were questioned at length by 2 FBI agents, 2 Secret Service agents, and the Boundary County Sheriff. Do you think there's 5 of them in one room, or do you think they're taking them individually?
I'd hope they, met individually. That's a lot. 5 on 2.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, get it out of the way, done. There's a lot of questions. Probably going to have the same stuff as well.
And all of this allegedly because one guy that lost a land dispute with Randy got angry and started sending fake letters to the president saying, I'm going to do this to you, I'm going to do that to you. It's
And not in a sexy way.
No. Well, we don't know. We haven't seen the letters, but bad, yeah.
I'm going to do something naughty, yeah.
And yeah, unless the letters were actually from Randy, which there's a lot. He has his critics, doesn't he? He has his critics. He's become a bit of a folk hero. But
to some, I mean,
to some,
yeah. I don't think we would be saying hero at all.
No, to some a folk hero, but got a lot of critics as well. Yeah.
The Secret Service had been informed that the Weavers were part of an Aryan Nations, a racist neo-Nazi white supremacist terrorist group, and that's why he's not a hero. And they were also told that Randy possessed a huge stockpile of illegally obtained weapons at his mountain cabin. Randy adamantly refuted these claims, and no charges were brought forward by the government. It was revealed that the Weavers had attended Aryan Nation meetings at nearby Hayden Lake on 3 or 4 occasions, where there was a compound for government resistors and white supremacists and separatists.
He's become a folk hero to those that are anti-government, I should say. I wasn't getting at that side of things. But he has become a folk hero to people that are anti-government.
You can like who you like. And
don't like him.
That is fine.
Don't like him.
But you respect him?
No respect either. Okay. No respect either. I do get caught in webs quite easily, but I'm not getting caught in this one.
Randy later said that they attended meetings at the Aryan Nations compound simply to make friends with Ben Carter. Oh, sorry, I'll read that again. Simply to make friends. But he also said that he believed in the need for racial separation and that a Zionist conspiracy controlled the government. Either way, his presence at such events, together with his alleged threats to high-ranking officials, placed him under the microscope of the FBI and the ATF. What's the ATF again? The
alcohol, tobacco, firearms. They did the Waco.
As well as this, it is alleged that some neighbours informed the local sheriff that Randy was a former Green Beret who kept more than a dozen firearms hidden in his cabin. And finally, in 1988, Randy made the controversial decision to briefly run for county sheriff by using the slogan, "Get out of jail free." Which is catchy. Whilst running for country sheriff, he was very vocal and proud about the fact that he was living off the land and had not been paying his taxes. Again, I don't think that's a great campaign trail, but
Folk hero to some, not me.
No, that's fine.
Lower taxes would be good. Can get behind that.
You can see what he's getting at.
That part.
Slippery slope though.
Just the taxes.
Pay your taxes, everybody.
Yeah, definitely pay taxes.
Pay your taxes.
What do you mean? Oh,
well, they could be a bit lower, couldn't they? That'd be nice.
No, things won't get done, man. Sadly.
You have the lowest form of tax at the moment.
Doesn't fucking feel like it.
Whilst attending one of these Aryan Nations meetings in 1989, Randy met a man by the supposed name of Gus Magisano. The pair quickly became friends, or at least trusting one another. So quick and so strong was their trust, whilst others assert Randy was pressured, that Randy offered to sell Gus 2 sawed-off shotguns. That July, Randy asked Gus to come to his house to talk about creating a group to oppose the Zionist organised government, which meant the US government. He was also later recorded on tape saying that he could supply Gus with 4 or 5 illegal shotguns a week. Unfortunately for Randy, Gus Magisano was actually Kenneth Fadley, an undercover ATF agent, and this small transaction would later become the basis for federal weapons charges after Randy refused to become a snitch against the Aryan Nation when he was presented with the evidence against him. Gus, as he had introduced himself, presented himself as a weapons dealer working with a number of local motorcycle gangs.
Yeah, you and Oscar. Oh, we like guns as well now.
Without this neighbour complaining on the land dispute, it probably wouldn't have happened. But, I mean, if this stuff was happening, then he would have obviously got caught and things would have happened, but the eye wouldn't have been on him. But apparently this undercover agent was there for another person rather than Randy Weaver. And it just so happens that they struck up a relationship, and then someone that's innocently moving to the mountains with his family to get away from society that can also supply you with 4 or 5 illegal sawn-off shotguns a week. There's got to be an element of criminality to that.
Weaving and deaving.
Weaving big time.
But yeah, I think the undercover guy was there for a few years, and then he got found out, didn't he? And then they thought, oh, we need to carry this on. We've got dirt on Weaver. Let's try and turn him into a snitch.
Yeah.
And the fact he refused, they were like, okay, well, now you know too much about our operation. We've got to make something happen here.
Following the ATF's filing of gun charges against her husband, Vicki Weaver sent a letter to then US Attorney Maurice O. Ellsworth, referring to him as servant of the Queen of Babylon. In the letter, she stated, "The stink of your lawless government has reached heaven, the abode of Yahweh, our Yahshua. Whether we live or whether we die, we will not bow to your evil commandments." This only served to heighten an already extremely volatile situation. The ATF confidently claimed that Randy was a bank robber with a criminal record. Subsequently, in December of 1990, a federal grand jury charged Randy with making and possessing illegal weapons, but not for selling them. They now needed to somehow peacefully arrest a former Green Beret who allegedly had a stockpile of weapons in his isolated mountain cabin. After a number of strategy meetings, the ATF ultimately decided it was too risky for agents to arrest Randy at his home. Therefore, they placed 2 additional undercover agents in the mountainous location close to Ruby Ridge who had pretended to have been stranded as a result of their broken-down vehicle. When Randy and Vicki quickly stopped by to try and offer them some help, the agents revealed their true identities and informed the couple of the charges against Randy before arresting him and releasing him on bail, and letting him know that his trial would start on the 19th of February, 1991.
Elaborate as well. That would piss you off. Stop to help, so stop to do a good deed and get bloody arrested. It's like your stings that you watch, but no good deeds.
Oh, I think they're similar to Dan Stings.
No.
No good deeds.
That's
no
just
good deeds.
confronting the abysmal.
Quick
Well,
backtrack.
unless they are just meeting those people to be nice and play with them innocently, like they claim to. But I don't think that's what they're planning to do, Dan.
No, I don't think so.
It's kind of like serving papers, isn't it? Which I don't really think is a thing here, is it?
No,
You've
but
been
you see
served.
people do it in America quite a lot, in lots of different elaborate ways.
I just didn't know you could arrest someone and then release them instantly.
Yeah, I mean, on bail, unless he's been taken to the station for a couple of hours and then bosh, pay that off.
That makes way more sense, Ben, so forgive me.
But you'd be really annoyed, wouldn't you? Stop to help and that happened. You get served.
Well, I'm not going to fix your tyre now. It's not actually broken, Randy. Fuck's sake. Let me just return these shot-off shotguns and then I'll come with you. We're going to have to take that off you, Randy, as well. Oh, for fuck's sake.
So we now arrive at one of the most pivotal and entirely preventable moments of the case. Randy was obviously informed that his trial would be starting on February 19th. He was also informed that the court had appointed him a lawyer by the name of Everett Hoffmeister. Mr. Everett Hoffmeister, legal services at your service.
Yeah.
Or court appointed at your service.
Was that after he was a lifeguard on Baywatch?
Very good. Very good. The Hoff.
We'll get you off. And probably get you off the trial as well.
Okay. Well, this all gets a bit interesting here. So due to the fact that February 19th was on a Tuesday that followed a bank holiday, which in America was President's Day, the trial actually got moved to February 20th in order to allow more travel time for those planning on attending. Numerous phone calls were supposedly made to attempt to inform Randy of this change, but obviously he's up in the mountains, no phone, no electricity. So letters were sent out, and numerous letters were allegedly sent to Randy's off-the-grid location, but they were also sent to his lawyer, Mr. Everett Hoffmeister, the Hoff that will get you off. This change of date never got through to Randy Weaver. As obviously he was off the grid, he did not have a working telephone, and it was very rare that letters ever got to him. As a result, he was not informed of the change of date and therefore did not attend on the 19th or the 20th. And you might ask, well, he knew it was going to be the 19th. Why didn't he just pop his head in on the 19th to see if it was going ahead? He had actually received some communication, which reached him via letter, and that came from his probation officer, a man by the name of Carl Richins, who, unfortunately, and there's a lot of preventability in this case, which seems to be a theme for the cases we've covered this series. Apparently, Carl turned to him and said, it's no longer on the 19th of February, it's on the 20th of March. And he said 20th of March instead of the 20th of February.
Carl.
So that's why Randy's obviously not turned up on the 19th or the 20th. And from here, things escalate massively. So after Randy failed to appear at his court hearing, a warrant was immediately issued for his arrest, and federal marshals placed his cabin under surveillance, plotting a way to apprehend him peacefully. And obviously they'd already used the broken down car gig. They couldn't probably do that again. I don't know how many tricks they've got left up their sleeve at this point. So what they did was set up several covert motion-activated cameras on land that was owned by the Weaver family. And there's lots of infamous surveillance footage from this case. It captured Randy, his wife, his friend, and some of his children, moving around outside the grounds of the cabin. It was later proven that the wrong date had been sent to Randy, but the judge that was overseeing his case, a man by the name of Judge Harold Lyman Ryan, refused to withdraw the warrant, even knowing it was their fuck-up. So that's quite interesting. The Weavers subsequently retreated fully into isolation at Ruby Ridge, fearing government intrusion. And a critical note to make here is that in escalating this case, it was no longer, local law enforcement that were dealing with this. They now involved the US Marshals Service. And as they were now involved in trying to apprehend Randy, the ATF had conveniently failed to inform them that the ATF had also attempted to turn Randy into an informant on their behalf. So the passing and sharing of information in this case is very murky. Very, very murky. So ATF were the ones doing the investigation into him at the Aryan meetups and the weapons, transactions. Local law enforcement were the ones then trying to prosecute him for this. US Marshals are now involved on a whole new level. So it's very murky, the sharing of information here.
Dan just WhatsApped me. Dan, it's not Marshals, it's in guitar amps Marshals. Why would they get involved? Crank it up to 11, baby.
I didn't.
More a PV guy.
Sorry? Oh.
So a couple of months later, on the 18th of April, the case against Randy Weaver and his family was brought to the knowledge of the local general public when the so-called Rivera helicopter incident occurred. And this is when a helicopter that was actually hired out by journalist and television host Geraldo Rivera made the decision to fly directly over Ruby Ridge at the height of kind of this anxious, it's not the official standoff, but it's getting close to a standoff. So he's aware he's being watched at the moment, Randy Weaver. Federal agents reported that Randy and a friend of his, a man by the name of Kevin Harris, had apparently fired bullets at a surveillance helicopter flying near the Weaver property, though both Randy Weaver and Kevin Harris would deny this allegation. There was also no evidence at all that gunfire was, there's no gun holes on the helicopter, there was no sound of gunfire in the area, but it was reported that this guy who's broken the law, is hiding in the mountains, has been firing bullets at a surveillance helicopter. So this is the rumor that starts getting, spread by the media. Despite the uncertainty, the report contributed to the perception among law enforcement that Randy Weaver now posed a significant armed threat. And again, some of his neighbours that didn't like him had reported to police he's got dozens of weapons. They've now heard on covert surveillance audio that he's an arms dealer and can quickly supply 5 to 6 guns a week. The element that he was possibly a former Green Beret. They are taking him seriously, and authorities also suspected that the Weaver cabin and surrounding property might also be booby-trapped or tunneled, reinforcing the belief that any attempt to directly engage with Randy would be met with hostility. Every shadow of the tree line, every silence in the woods seemed to confirm it. Randy wasn't going to come quietly. And with that, the stage was now set for one of the most volatile and tragic showdowns in American history. Once again, without this initial land conflict with his neighbour, none of this would have gone on to happen. Without the letters sent by his neighbour and the retaliatory letter sent by his wife, none of this would have gone on to happen. And without the errors made by his lawyer and his probation officer, none of this would have happened. However, critics of Randy Weaver will also point out that without Randy's association to the Aryan nations, none of this would have happened. Without Randy claiming to be able to provide and traffic illegal firearms, none of this would happen. And if Randy had made regular efforts to keep in loop with the local courthouse, none of this would have happened. The huge commonality with both critics and sympathizers of this particular case and of Randy Weaver is that what happens next absolutely shouldn't have happened, regardless of any of your political beliefs. And it is here that we move to the timeline of the Ruby Ridge standoff.
The morning of August 21st, 1992, day 1. The Weaver family awoke to another day of tense isolation on their remote Ruby Ridge property, completely unaware that multiple armed US Marshals were already submerged in wooded areas surrounding them. As news of the situation began to circulate, particularly amongst locals, small crowds began to gather in protest at the verge of Ruby Ridge. Roads were shut, access to certain parts of the mountains and forests were shut off to the public, and local police were required to try and cordon off the protesters from the area. It had been more than 6 months since Randy was due to attend his court hearing, and he, his wife, his 4 children, including a 10-month-old baby, as well as his friend Kevin Harris, were all aware that teams of US Marshals were now slowly closing in on their cabin home. For the Marshals, it was a high-stakes operation. Each one of their movements were considerably calculated, with the growing fear of a hostile response from Randy Weaver, his friend, or his family members. To the wider world, Ruby Ridge was still little more than a footnote in the news. A story of another man up in the mountains who is resisting the government and looking to avoid paying his bills. But it was about to become a national flashpoint. Supposedly, a team of 6 Marshals was sent into wooded areas surrounding the Weaver cabin in order to scout out safe and suitable areas in which Randy could be arrested. However, this supposed scouting mission did not at all go to plan, and the Ruby Ridge standoff officially begins. US Marshal Art Roderick, who was supposedly scouting out safe areas of apprehension, started throwing rocks at the Weaver family cabin in order to test the reactions of the family dog, a yellow Labrador retriever named Striker. Striker started barking to alert the family and began following the Marshals into heavily wooded areas. As the Weaver's 14-year-old son Sammy and family friend Kevin Harris moved through the woods trying to follow Striker, who they thought might be hunting a rabbit, they stumbled into the hidden Marshals who were lurking in the shadows. The Marshals were wearing military camouflage and had night vision goggles on as well as M16 rifles. What happens next is heavily disputed, but the general consensus is the dog barked, many of the men shouted, and in the confusion, multiple shots rang out in each direction, 19 in total. Which is a lot of shots, multiple, that is a lot of shots. Within just a few seconds, Striker now lay dead. Sammy was shot in the back and the shoulder/arm region, causing him to be mortally wounded. and Deputy Marshal William Deegan had also been killed by bullets fired by Kevin Harris. For years, arguments would rage on with regards to who fired first, but the majority believe that the US Marshals fired on Stryker before any of the other bullets were exchanged. What began that morning as a minor watch and wait operation had now unexpectedly exploded into bloodshed, and the damage was irreversible. It was later reported that 14-year-old Sammy shouted, "You've killed my dog, you son of a bitch," before firing a couple of rounds and started to retreat up the hill. This is where he was shot in the back and killed. Kevin Harris and Randy Weaver then retreated to the cabin, where Randy and Vicki later bravely returned to the scene of the crossfire in order to retrieve their son's body, whilst Kevin remained with the 3 Weaver girls, 16-year-old Sarah, 10-year-old Rachel, and 10-month-old Elishaba. Vicki and Kevin Harris then placed Sammy's body in a shed at the rear of the main cabin. After Randy and Kevin retreated to the cabin, the marshals called in support from the FBI, and by the next day, scores of agents were surrounding the property, including specialist snipers with controversial orders to neutralize any armed adult males. A standoff would ensue for the next 11 days, as several hundred federal agents surrounded the cabin, while multiple attempts were made to negotiate a surrender.
So yeah, that's the first element of there are many elements of controversy in this case, but yeah, the argument now is kind of around, did Sammy shoot first? Did Kevin shoot first? Did the marshal shoot first? And that debate would rage on for many other years. But the fact is, a little kid's been shot in the back. He may have shot first, who knows? But they've now drafted up this special rules of engagement. The FBI are responsible for this, and I'd be intrigued to see what you boys make of this rules of engagement that they essentially authorize and sign off on.
The 4 rules of engagement were drafted as follows. Number 1. If any adult in the area around the cabin is observed with a weapon after the surrender announcement had been made, deadly force could and should be used to neutralize the individual. Number 2. If any adult male is observed with a weapon prior to the announcement, deadly force can and should be employed if the shot can be taken without endangering any children. Number 3. If compromised by any dog, the dog could be taken out. Number 4. Any subjects other than Randy Weaver, Vicki Weaver, Kevin Harris presenting threat of death or grievous bodily harm, FBI rules of deadly force apply. Deadly force can be utilised to prevent the death or grievous bodily injury to oneself or that of another. The rules of engagement were specifically modified to state adult male in point 2 in order to exclude the possibility of Vicki Weaver being harmed in the assignment.
Yeah, which is interesting because if you look at number 4, they're essentially signing off on, if a child tries to harm you, you can shoot them. That's essentially what they sign off on. And then they're still saying that, Vicki Weaver, if she presents the threat of death, she's perfectly okay to target. So it's an interesting series, and these were specific for that situation.
These rules of engagement feel way too trigger happy. Way too trigger happy.
Yeah. I mean, they have them surrounded, but they're going off the rumours of Randy Weaver and what is in the cabin at this point, rather than the fact that there are very young children and a baby present here, which is, and how quickly they've signed this off.
It says we're taking the shot without endangering any children because it's such a small cabin, and it is, and obviously we're going to go into that, and it's every shot pretty much is endangering children there. I get if you're an FBI agent and someone's got a gun pointed at you and it's literally that circumstance, but someone walking with a gun and it not being pointed, I think, it's basically just going, let's cover our backs completely for anything that happens in this situation. But I've seen interviews with people who involved in the day who said that they can't believe that these rules were put into place.
And as well, at this point, they've obviously also shot, and unbeknownst to most of them, killed a 14-year-old boy and a dog as well. And they're stating that their lives were placed in danger by the boy and the dog, when the Weaver family would claim that the boy was simply trying to get the dog out of harm's way. But who knows? Who knows?
Retired FBI agent and hostage rescue team sniper Christopher Whitcomb, who was present during the siege, stated the following harrowing observation. "I can't speak for everybody on my team, but I assumed I was walking into a violent situation and there was likely to be a shootout. The entire world, for someone in my position at the time, was just through a scope. You don't see the world around you and the larger circumstances. The people that I saw had assault rifles and were moving from tree to building to woodpile through fog. I didn't have the shot. My finger was on the trigger. I was trying to take the shot, but didn't have it."
And I mean, the eldest child, the first child, Sarah, was seen carrying, large rifles by these snipers as well. But they have these, that would, under point number 4 of this, these new rules of engagement, that would warrant her a target, right? Which is, if you see this footage of them as well moving, there's lots of restricted view, there's trees, there's, as he said, stockpiles of wood, an outhouse or shed, the cabin, there's lots of different people moving around, young children present. To imagine that view of just a scope kind of combing through the area like you would on a video game, perhaps. It's quite terrifying to imagine being placed in that scenario and given those objectives.
Yeah, like Dan said, it's just they've basically made the rules so, anything goes, and very, very trigger happy. And as I said, maybe it's in hindsight, but I've seen some interviews on a documentary where a lot of the people were saying they're horrified when they learnt about the rules of engagement afterwards, and some people were saying that they had no idea somebody had actually been killed, like it wasn't reported that he had been. So because it was such a quick kind of like blaze of like gunfire, that if they were to know that at that time, then things would have been very different, because they believed that they would have then known the mood in the camp rather than thinking that they were all safe, kind of tucked away there, which is what. So obviously it depends what you believe, because it could be hindsight, it could be trying to paint history in a different way. But they were trying to claim that if they knew exactly that happened, then the way that the FBI and everyone behaved after that point wouldn't have been the way that they did go on to behave.
I just think also, I know I can appreciate going into an unknown like that. You're going to be on edge, and if you're going in knowing there's probably going to be a shootout, you need to be ready for that. But I think an authority like that needs to have trigger discipline, if anything, as the number one kind of rule, so to speak. But it seems like the discipline is not there for this for this situation.
Yeah, like I said, it should be absolutely last port of call, but it doesn't seem to be. It seems to be the port of call for all of these different options.
Yeah.
Well, especially if they believe he's stockpiled X number of weapons, the place is rigged and booby-trapped, and like they are placing the children in so much more danger if they're not being disciplined, which seems to be the theme. It's terrifying.
Booby rich.
Yeah. The following morning, August 22nd, 1992, and this is day 2. Crowds of furious protesters increased in areas surrounding Ruby Ridge. The entire time, Randy, Vicki, Kevin, and the 3 Weaver children are under 24-hour surveillance. There are growing fears that the adults present in the house will respond with venom after it is confirmed that 14-year-old Samuel Weaver was killed, or obviously in their eyes murdered, during the first day of the siege. At the same time, with the FBI now in charge of the situation, veteran negotiators and elite hostage rescue teams start to travel towards Idaho in a bid to enter negotiations with the Weavers and their associate Kevin Harris. So we now introduce to the case veteran FBI sniper Lon Tomohisa Horiuchi. And we've talked about him briefly in our Oklahoma City bombing episode. There is a great deal of controversy attached to this individual in specific relation to Ruby Ridge as well as Waco, and he's obviously also referenced in the Oklahoma City bombing. So though there were numerous snipers surrounding the cabin, none have been more so met with controversy than Lon Horiuchi. At one point, Randy Weaver left the main cabin and headed towards the rear shed where he and his wife had placed their son's body. As he attempted to lift the latch of the rear cabin, a bullet suddenly entered his back and exited through his right armpit. Randy immediately fell to the ground as he quickly regained his composure and started crawling back towards the main cabin. This bullet was fired by FBI sniper Lon Horiuchi from more than 200 yards north of the cabin. And Horiuchi would later claim that he had his crosshairs set on Randy's spine, but that he moved slightly at the last minute. And this would not be the last bullet fired by Lon Horiuchi. The sound of the first bullet being fired caused Randy, his eldest daughter Sarah, and Kevin Harris all to start running towards the main cabin. Sarah and Randy made it back inside whilst Vicki Weaver was waiting by the door of the cabin, holding her 10-month-old baby in the process. So as they were running towards the cabin, Lon Horiuchi fired a second bullet which struck Kevin Harris in the chest. Now, the bullet did not stop with Kevin, and it travelled right through him, also striking Vicki Weaver in the head. Randy and Sarah would state that they saw Vicki fall to the floor, clutching her baby, as blood immediately began spilling from her body. She died almost immediately as baby Elishaba was taken from her grip. 43-year-old Vicki's untimely death shocked even some of those within law enforcement and would go on to become the most controversial moment of the Ruby Ridge siege. Many reporters and anti-government activists then flocked to the area, and Randy Weaver quickly became a far-right celebrity, and this was even before the standoff had concluded. There were many people, we'll play some clips for you throughout the episode, but there were many people that were screaming in the faces of marshals and ATF members and FBI agents that were arriving at the scene. There were people holding up picket signs and things like that. But yeah, they're immediately sympathizing with this man's situation. Ruby Ridge was already widely known as a symbol of government overreach. And here are some words from Sarah, who was describing seeing her father getting shot and then her mother being murdered.
I said, "Dad, what happened?" And he said, "I've been shot." And, at this point, my mom had stepped out of the door and she was screaming, what happened? And get in the house. And we all get piled up in front of the door, and I hear what is like a gunshot going off in my ear. And Mom just drops to my side. I knew what had happened to her immediately. I thought it was the end for all of us at that point.
August 23rd and 24th, day 3 and 4. The siege and standoff at Ruby Ridge deepens. Federal agents surround the cabin with armoured vehicles, floodlights and loudspeakers. Negotiations begin, but Randy, devastated by the deaths of both his wife and son, refuses to surrender. Agents are alleged to play taunting messages over loudspeakers, which included references to Vicki making breakfast, either completely unaware or totally indifferent to the fact that she has been killed.
So just on this, basically there are, again, statements that allege they knew Vicki was now dead. They didn't know that the bullet had gone through Kevin Harris and struck Vicki. They weren't completely aware, but basically in this loudspeaker, as Vicki to this point had been the main person they were interacting with, they were saying over the loudspeaker, "Oh, Vicki, why don't you come and make your kids breakfast? Why don't you make them pancakes? You should be doing this, you should be doing that." And obviously she's laying dead on the cabin floor at this point. It's not being clarified if this was to kind of make them suffer further. Sarah claimed that she viewed it as them rubbing salt in the wounds, but other people have stated, those present weren't aware, just as with Samuel or Sammy, that they had both deceased at this point. Until an open dialogue is established, they didn't know.
Meanwhile, Kevin Harris, who'd been shot in the back, required urgent medical attention and had even started to talk to Randy about the idea of a possible mercy killing. The Weaver children had now spent 2 days in the same cabin that the mother now lay dead in. Kevin Harris would later recall, "They killed young Sam and Vicki and almost killed Randy and me, and were afraid that if we came outside, they'd finish us all off. So we decided that we were going to stay inside." August 25th, 26th and 27th, 1992, day 5, 6 and 7. Negotiations continue to drag on. Due to the immense criticism that they are starting to receive, high-ranking members of the FBI and US Marshals are adamant to avoid any further bloodshed. Despite this, communication between the FBI and the Weavers remains incredibly strained. Supporters and anti-government activists continue to gather outside the perimeter, condemning the overwhelmingly brash federal response. Randy's 3 young daughters are still inside the cabin, heightening public concern for the surviving children. All individuals inside the cabin are badly sleep-deprived, starving, traumatised, and Randy and Kevin both have serious gunshot wounds. Sarah Weaver would later recall, "We didn't trust anybody for any kind of help, or for anything at all. We didn't feel, at that point, very confident that we were going to be allowed to share our side of the story. We weren't even confident that we were going to make it out alive." August 28th to 30th, day 8, 9 and 10. After more than a week without a breakthrough, negotiators boldly shift strategy, controversially bringing in Lieutenant Colonel Bo Gritz as a civilian negotiator.
Bo Gritz. It's a cool name. I think he could own a restaurant.
Yeah? That works.
Perhaps with a jingle.
Oh,
Bogrits.
fucking hell, Ben. Right, Tom, step in.
Bogrits Wild West
So
restaurant.
resentful. Oh.
It's the music first. I did not know that was the process.
Are you coming hiking, looking for some biking? Why not head down to Bo Grits Western Restaurant? We got everything for you. We got grits, we got waffles. Hey there, do you want a coffee? Have some coffee, you need it. Bo Grits, with a small but a firm hand.
Fantastic.
Less than a second of prep.
Brilliant.
That's mad,
Impressive.
isn't it?
I mean, they sound very samey after a while, I think. Same accent every time I do it.
Come on down.
Go on now.
Despite also having an amazing name, Bo Grits himself was a former Green Beret and family acquaintance very much respected by Randy due to his military achievements and links to the right wing. Grits slowly established trust with Randy and the seriously injured Kevin Harris, convincing them that the standoff cannot continue indefinitely for the sake of the young children and the damage already done. Medical attention is promised for Kevin Harris, who is eventually taken out of the cabin on a stretcher before being placed onto a US Air Force helicopter and airlifted to a nearby hospital. Due to the trust achieved between Grits and Randy, they also agree for Vicki Weaver's body to be retrieved from the cabin, which Grits himself oversaw.
So just to give you a flavour of the kind of growing tension of this situation, but also how the media were portraying the negotiations, here is a kind of a small selection of news reports from the time. And it's interesting to note how they frame this case. And at this point, obviously, that I would imagine the journalists and news reporters involved aren't aware that there is, I mean, one of them references people being dead, but I'm sure they're unaware that a child has been killed and, a wife holding a newborn baby, well, a young baby in her arms has also been killed. It's very interesting to hear the news reports, so we're going to play some of those for you now.
People have already died. Neither side seems ready to back down.
The FBI says they will not leave until Weaver and his friend Kevin Harris, who lives with him, are in custody.
Everyone here in Naples agrees that Weaver is a white supremacist who just wants to be left alone. For police, he is a fugitive on a federal arms charge, heavily armed and dangerous.
Despite the immense progress achieved by Bo, I'm going to call him Bo now, the commander of the FBI hostage rescue team set a deadline for Bo to persuade the remaining Weavers to surrender. He warned that if they did not surrender by the deadline, he would end the standoff with a tactical assault. It is widely believed that this deadline was either 24 or 48 hours. Bo gave Randy assurances that, with his wife now deceased, his 3 girls could be immediately placed into the care of his parents or extended family members. He also confirmed that Kevin Harris had survived, but was being kept isolated in a special hospital wing until subsequent arrests and interviews could be arranged.
See, Bo was adamant when he was speaking to Randy. They said, if you don't get Kevin Harris out of here with that infection, then I'm not going to basically going to bat for you and not going to kind of stand up for you after this, because he needs help and he needs help now. And he basically said, with the kind of infection that was going on, that if he didn't let him go and get help, that he was going to die, and basically he wouldn't stand up for him in court or kind of stand by him in that essence. So it just goes to show how bad a state Kevin Harris was in.
Yeah, for me, this is always just imagine those poor children. They've seen their mum being killed. They've seen their dad get shot. They've lost their brother, and they've been kept confined in this very small cabin, knowing that the same could possibly happen to them because they don't know what's going on in the outside, environment. And
you think it's one of those where you've seen your mum, you've seen your mum die, who's one of your main protectors. You think, oh, that's that, and yeah, your dad's wounded. Yeah, I'm sure they must have been thinking it's only a matter of time now until we get raided and we'll get killed, because seemingly, the FBI were taking no prisoners in their eyes. Well, they weren't. So yeah, it definitely would have been horrendous.
And that Kevin Harris as well, although he's fighting infection and had been shot and was barely still alive, the FBI wouldn't let any family members visit him, no one come and see him. He was basically kept prisoner within a hospital until he could be interviewed and arrested and charged. So it was a very serious situation, obviously, by everyone involved. And yeah, just the whole time I'm thinking of those poor children that were witnessing all of this chaos around them. It's terrifying.
A big thing to note at this time as well was Jackie Brown, who was a family friend of the Weavers. She actually went in with Bo Grits on one occasion, and she was very close to Vicki. And she decided to do something which, I think was out of respect to the family and out of respect to Vicki, especially, her daughter. She wanted to clean her blood up from the cabin just in order so the daughter wouldn't have to do it, which, that's a traumatic thing within itself. So she did that for pure reasons, but in doing so, she was contaminating evidence and obviously cleaning up a murder scene. So this would later hamper the kind of investigation going forward. I don't think she was told not to do it by the FBI, I have to say. But yeah, she was the only person that was allowed to go with Bo to kind of talk to the family because she was so close to the family. And again, who depends who you believe. The documentary I watched, which was some janky old one talking to lots of FBI agents and whatnot, they said that they had no idea about Vicki passing. And again, if they knew the situation with Sammy and Vicki, that they wouldn't have acted in the same way that they were acting. But toward the end, they still got like one of those controlled tanks that they could control up there with a shotgun at the end of it. So it's like they constantly were going in with more and more firearms, and they're terrified. But what a small little family were going to do. So yeah, even though I don't agree with the Weavers' beliefs and whatnot, it's so much force used against a small isolated family is absolutely absurd.
It's really interesting to try and imagine what was going through Randy Weaver's mind at this point as well, because obviously he'd seen his wife, they were there for him. He'd seen his wife being murdered, he'd seen his son die. He still has very young children, 3 young girls with him. He has an opportunity to release them from that situation, but at the same time, is he fearing that the second they step out of that cabin, they're going to be shot just like the rest of his family? Or is he thinking that, if he hands himself in, will they be kept safe? Will they be allowed to be, placed into the care of his extended family? It's just, keep going back to the children and what those days, must have been like for them, and that experience is absolutely harrowing.
Well, you got to think, as a person who is anti-government, doesn't trust them, the government have then done this to his family. Mm-hmm. So, he's got every right to not trust what they're going to do and not, nothing's off the table in terms of what they could do to his family. But yeah. August 31st, day 11. The following day, after 11 days of incredibly tense standoff, Randy Weaver surrendered peacefully along with his 3 surviving daughters, and the siege officially ended. An infamous photo is captured of an injured Randy Weaver being escorted out of Ruby Ridge by Bo Gritz and FBI agents as he carries his baby girl. His children were placed into the care of his family, whilst Randy was provided with an initial medical inspection before being transferred to and detained in Ada County Jail in Idaho. Federal officials considered charging Randy's eldest daughter Sarah, who was just 16, as an adult, but opted not to amidst fears of further backlash. Kevin Harris and Randy Weaver were taken into custody on multiple charges, including first-degree murder of Deputy Marshal William Deegan and conspiracy, but the government's case collapsed during the trial. The jury completely acquitted Kevin Harris and found Randy Weaver guilty of just one charge, which was breaching his original bail conditions. He received a $10,000 fine and an 18-month prison sentence. The incident sparked widespread outrage, leading to Senate hearings, FBI internal reviews, and major criticism of federal law enforcement tactics. Coincidentally, at the same time of the Randy Weaver trial, another violent confrontation was happening between Christian millennialists, known as the Branch Davidians, and federal agents, this time near Waco, Texas. A government siege on the group's compound and the subsequent assault resulted in the deaths of 4 agents and 82 members of the sect. Ruby Ridge, along with Waco the following year, became a rallying cry for militia movements and a symbol of government overreach in the 1990s, culminating in the Oklahoma City bombing at the hands of Timmy V. McVeigh. In August of 1995, 3 years after the standoff, the US government settled a civil lawsuit from the Weavers by giving $1 million to each of the 3 surviving daughters and $100,000 to Randy Weaver for the deaths of his son Sammy and his wife Vicki Weaver. This was a far cry from the combined $200 million that they were filing for as a result of the 2 wrongful deaths. 5 years later, in September of 2000, Kevin Harris was awarded a $380,000 settlement by the government.
So we move forward a month to September 6th of 1995. Randy Weaver was one of the first witnesses to attend a subcommittee inquiry into the incidents at Ruby Ridge. And there's loads of video footage. And Dan, we started this episode with Dan basically reading Randy Weaver's testimony or part of it. We'll put the full link to both the trial and the subcommittee hearing in our Facebook group, because there's pages upon pages and hours of video for that. In the opening paragraphs that he read out, he did admit that he was not without fault in the matter, and went on to say that if he had to do it over again, knowing what he knows now, he would come down from the mountain for the court appearance. In 1997, Michael Cahoe, who led the FBI's violent crimes section, admitted to obstructing justice by destroying a report that was important for understanding the agency's actions at Ruby Ridge. So yeah, there was a lot of public outcry for cover-ups and people acting without morals and not following the correct protocol for essentially destroying a key piece of evidence. He received just an 18-month sentence and a $4,000 fine. 3 other agents were suspended, and one other high-ranking number 2 deputy director of the FBI was demoted. Not long after this, Boundary County prosecutor Denise Woodbury charged specialist FBI sniper Lon Horiuchi, who by this point had actually gone into hiding for fears of his own life. They had charged him with manslaughter on state charges right before the statute of limitations ran out. She designated a special prosecutor to handle the case. However, in 1998, the trial was moved to federal court since Horiuchi was performing his duties as a federal law enforcement officer.
Horiuchi doing your duty.
So yeah, as Tom said, Horiuchi was simply doing his duty, but some people did not see it that way, particularly Timothy McVeigh. Lon Horiuchi had also been present at the Waco siege and was at one point further embroiled in controversy after it was alleged that he fired multiple bullets without authorization. This was never proven, and Horiuchi retired from the FBI in 2006. 5 months after the Waco siege, Oklahoma City bomber Timothy McVeigh participated in numerous gun shows that he would travel around America with, and we talked about this quite a lot in the Oklahoma City bombing episode. And he publicly stated that he hoped that someone in the Patriot movement would kill Lon Horiuchi. He went as far as to send hate letters to the sniper that stated, "What goes around comes around." And when he attended these gun shows, he also handed out leaflets and stickers that had Lon Horiuchi's name, address, and contact details on these stickers. McVeigh later stated that he had thought about killing Horiuchi or one of his family members before ultimately deciding to carry out the Oklahoma City bombing.
Damn.
On May the 11th, 2022, 74-year-old Randy Weaver, who during his time on Earth had become a reluctant hero of the anti-government far right, passed away. And this was a statement that was released by his eldest daughter, Sarah. She took to Facebook to post information here. Apparently, Randy had been sick for the previous several weeks prior to his death, but no official cause of death was stated on the upload to Facebook. And she did not say where this happened or give his cause of death. He had remarried in the decades after Ruby Ridge, and his second wife, Linda Gross, as well as his 3 daughters, survived him. And even though the events that followed at the cabin turned Randy Weaver into a notable figure amongst the far right and militias and gun lovers and various far right groups, he accepted his fame with hesitation. He stayed out of the limelight over the following years, but he did go on to write 2 books about his experiences at Ruby Ridge, which he would go on to sell at gun shows, and sometimes he would make speeches at anti-government groups.
Obviously, as you said, a million and one times, we're not gun guys. Surely this is the biggest advert to yourself to be anti-gun. And the fact that he's selling this book at gun shows just makes you think, if that can't teach you, like that incident can't teach you to change your kind of mind around owning weapons I don't know.
So the Ruby Ridge standoff became a founding point of the radical right, together with the incidents not long after this at Waco. It not only made the government look bad, but it actually was very, very bad. People with whatever views they had should not be actively shot down by government snipers when they are not actively threatening the life of somebody else. Later investigations revealed that law enforcement and authorities had made a catalogue of errors. Authorities on the ground surrounding Ruby Ridge, and there were multiple agencies as well, the ATF, local police, US Marshals, FBI, they were not communicating with one another correctly. When specialist agents, negotiators, people of prominent positions were arriving from out of state, they would again kind of exaggerate what was actually going on, which made them feel that Randy Weaver and his family were much more of a threat than they actually were. And agents that were on the scene failed to set up a clear line of negotiation or contact with the family until after the son had been murdered and after the wife had been murdered. So there was not clear lines of communication. There was no way to negotiate from earlier on. And in the end, jurors decided that Randy Weaver's most serious crime was failing to appear at court. This was met, as we said, by accusations that the FBI also attempted to cover up their failings, and there were a number of eerie patterns and parallels that emerged during the Waco siege, which went on for a much longer period of time and ended with a much higher volume of innocent lives lost, and also obviously ended in gunfire and death as a result of government miscalculation.
Because even with Waco, it was a conversation of who shot first, wasn't it? It's like
massive point, and a massive overreaction and retaliation. To present day, Sarah Weaver, the youngest daughter of Randy, still owns the land and the property where the cabin was to date. She's recently taken a number of different filmmakers and their crews to the location. And I think we put it in the episode at various points, there's drone footage of what now stands where Ruby Ridge once was. As I said, I've got there was a 14-day Ruby Ridge investigation and Senate subcommittee hearing, which is where Randy Weaver spoke. There's a website I'd never heard of before called C-SPAN or cspan.org. And they have loads of archived trials and hearings and legal debates on their website. And they're a charity in some way. And it has hours upon hours of Ruby Ridge arguments and Senate hearings and stuff like that. So I'll pop all of that in our Facebook group. And these hearings were part of the larger federal review and oversight of the Ruby Ridge incident and the similar Waco siege. They looked into the actions and misconduct of the law enforcement agencies involved. And as you can't really find that on YouTube anywhere, we'll pop that link out there for you now. But it's overall just a tragic case that could have been avoided and should have been avoided. And 3 completely innocent people were killed.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, as we said, no matter, we don't agree with their standpoints and their views politically, but as Ben mentioned, if someone's unarmed and not harmed to anyone, that level of violence is absolutely ridiculous. And also it seemed like saving face with the fact that he turned them down of being a snitch as well. And it just, all these things is it's absolutely perplexing, and not condoning it at all, but you can see why it sparked outrage and made people want to rebel and take action. But obviously 2 wrongs don't make a right, and it's just more bloodshed. It's not the way to resolve anything. But really, really sad case. I can see why it does, get people incredibly angry. And for a little bit of light relief, I'm going to do a quick look-alikey. Your first few, you still looking?
I've got it. I'm worried we might have the same one. No?
Go on, you reveal.
Okay. So for me, the whole way through this documentary I was watching of kind of more recent Randy Weaver, I think he looks a lot like Phil Dunphy
Fucking
from
cunt.
Modern Family. Is it really your one?
Yeah, I just got it. Yeah.
Okay, well, we might have different photos. This is... oh, yeah, shit, we've used the same photo as well. For the same mugshot one. The actor Ty Burrell.
Very good. From both of
we
you.
Both picked different pictures of Ty, but we picked the same picture of Weaver, the mugshot picture. Yeah, I was also thinking there's kind of a bit of, maybe not Johnny Cash, there's a rockabilly look to him, isn't there?
What about this one? Is a terrible shout because you went first. I will.
So glad I went first.
Yeah, I'm so annoyed because that's a great shot. I'm going to go with, Limney Schnickets a little bit, but it's because more than kind of nose and face rather than anything else. But, or Johnny, you could do Johnny Cash maybe.
I feel like there was a
Johnny
rockabilly
Cash.
vibe. I don't think they actually looked that. I think I put Bob Dylan, Johnny Cash, young, old, both of them, and it just didn't work. So I went with Ty Burrell.
Who's the guy who plays the Green Goblin in Spider-Man?
William Dafoe.
William Dafoe.
A tiny bit of William Dafoe in there.
It's the nose. There's a nose. Something speaking to me about the nose.
Let me try this one. He
could play not bad.
He could play Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
But Phil Dunphy's definitely. That's the one.
There you have it. Flipping heck. Another episode down. Just 3 to go.
And very soon it's the audience vote, guys. So we're going to need you guys to help us out and pick a case for episode 11 this series. So be sure to keep an eye on your socials to cast your vote. We want to hear from you. But before we go, Ben, you got a cryptic clue for us for next week's ep?
Crikey, yeah. I think we talked at the start. Oh, so play the jingle, please.
Benjamin Carter's cryptic clues. Everyone gather round for some clues that can be quite cryptic, but he's going to give them to you anyway. Hope you can figure them out.
Yeah, I think we talked at the start about more people getting it. Maybe they're getting a bit easier. I think this one is intermediate. I think this is quite... Most people should get this, shall I say? Oh, just a little swim with Kravitz. Oh, just a little swim with Kravitz.
2 thumbs up from me.
Thank you so much. I went fireworks. Behind. There you go. Yeah, I think it's relatively straightforward, that one, but a very much opposite, not straightforward case when we dive into that one.
Yes. That's definitely attainable. I'm sure people will figure that one out.
Yes, sir.
But yes, guys, thank you to the old and new. And if you haven't already, why not consider subscribing to the podcast over here on YouTube? We're on the road to 100,000. And we've said when we hit that, we will be doing a live show within 6 months of hitting it. We don't know where. And if that went well, who's to say there wouldn't be multiple shows? Who knows? I'm not making promises. We're promising one show, but you never know if that goes well. If that goes well, it could be more. But yes.
And if you just can't wait until next week's episode, we have, at the time of recording, like 225 bonus episodes never previously seen or heard, unless you've already been a cult member, over at our website, icmap.co.uk. Audio and visual episodes over there. We do case requests, weekly content. So basically you're getting 4 extra episodes a month, and that is year round. We're going to do a creepy Halloween one. We're going to do a lovely Christmas one. We can't wait. Maybe a fireworks one.
Ooh.
Who knows?
And
also, a fireworks one.
You can get it for free for 7 days. So
I thought we killed that. It's
still open. It's probably going to be open for a while. Get it for free. Come on in. The boys don't like it, but I do. Come on.
Yeah, and see, let us know if you do that. How many you can listen to in 7 days? Because wow. Yeah, I'm sure you can go quite a marathon there. So. Do let us know. But thank you so much for your support. We couldn't do it without you. Very much appreciated. And until next time, like we always say.
We say this all the time.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Well, unless... That's not me, by the way. That's a dog for the misophonias out there.
You're going to get complaints.
2 dogs now.
You're going to get complaints.
Christ, the third one's going to be here in a sec. There he is in the shadows. Keep doing what you're doing unless Prince is having the same look. He's like he's... Go first.
Yeah. Lesson learned there. Lesson learned.
Teach them about politics and religion, but let them make their minds up. Their own
no political violence,
if they can make their mind.
Physical or verbal.
Yes, sir.
Not needed.
Until next time, guys.
See you later.
Take it easy. Tool pip. Oh.